everyone. Welcome to JK Yoga's International Gita Festival. This is a fabulous festival that celebrates the timeless wisdom of Gita. Swami Mukundananda ji's new commentary on Bhagavad Gita has just been released on Amazon, making this year's Gita Festival extra special. The International Gita Festival hosts 30 plus creative contests for all ages based on the commentary on Bhagavad Gita by Swamiji. There will be a lot more educative and entertaining programs such as live interactions with special guests and Swamiji, Gita Pandit Award, fun activities for children, etc. And the best part of the festival is the wonderful program called Har Ghar Gita, through which you will be able to distribute this divine wisdom of Gita to people around the globe. Madhu Reddy ji is offering a match for every Bhagavad Gita donated during International Gita Festival. This is a great way to double your contribution towards this divine cause. Bhagavad Gita literally means the song of God. They are divine words spoken by Sri Krishna, the Supreme Lord Himself. This sacred, timeless wisdom has transformed the lives of millions of people around the world, including mine and my family. Swamiji's realized wisdom makes his commentary on Bhagavad Gita absolutely priceless. It plants a seed of devotion in our hearts that will keep blooming forever. We now move on to the Gita Insights for Everyday Living segment, in which Swami Mukundananda ji will be shedding light on inner strength from Bhagavad Gita. Swami Mukundananda ji is a world-renowned spiritual leader, international authority of mind management, best-selling author, founder of yogic system called JK Yoga, Vedic scholar, Bhakti saint, and he's also a youth icon. Swamiji graduated from the most prestigious institutes of the world, IIT Delhi and IIM Calcutta. He is a senior disciple of Jagadguru Sri Kripaluji Maharaj. Swamiji for the last 3 decades has been traveling far and wide, awakening hundreds and thousands of seekers. His purpose is to share the finest gems of divine wisdom accrued from a lifetime of purity, dedication, and surrender. In his writings, he quotes liberally from all the major Indian sacred texts and the Eastern and Western systems of philosophy. He is the best-selling author for numerous books. He is also extremely popular on various social media channels with a combined followers of 5 million plus people. Swamiji's practical advice marks his prominence at Fortune 500 companies and renowned universities worldwide. Swamiji has inspired people all over the world on the path of spirituality, holistic health, yoga, meditation, service to society, and God realization. His warmth and humility touch all those who have had the fortune to have his association. Our special guest for today's interaction is Dr. Ashwin Vijay. Radhe Radhe, Dr. Ashwin Vijay ji. Dr. Ashwin Vijay is a dynamic orthopedic doctor and health expert who inspires 3 million followers to pursue a healthier lifestyle through his social media channels. Dr. Ashwin Vijay's life mission is to serve and help people discover their inner strength. His work in the area of physical and mental health is backed by science and delivered with heart and emotions. From Chennai through the Indian subcontinent and across the world, Dr. Ashwin Vijay has created a health movement which inspires people around the globe. Till date, his videos have clocked more than 500 million views. He is joining hands with national and international stars to bring about a new age health awareness. As an orthopedic doctor and surgeon, Dr. Ashwin Vijay created a new state-of-the-art orthopedic center called Ojas Ortho, which inspires health and well being for every patient with empathy and sensitivity. Dr. Ashwin Vijay is treating domestic and international athletes for their injuries. He is also part of the International Society of Arthroscopy, Knee and Orthopedic Sports Medicine. Dr. Ashwin Vijay was honored for his work with several prestigious awards. Once again, thank you for joining us. Now I hand over to Swamiji and Dr. Ashwin Vijay. Radhe Radhe.
Namaskaram, Swamiji. Pleasure to be a part of this conversation. And
Namaste, Dr. Ashwin. So happy to be discussing some topics that I know are very close to your heart and mine as well, regarding health, inner strength, and positivity.
amazing, amazing. And Swami, especially now, right? This is more, I feel this is the need of the hour. Inner strength, health, and as you said, positivity. And, I would like to, hear from you about what exactly the Gita says about things in these contexts. So I'm going to start with one question to you.
Sure.
See, especially there are stereotypes, isn't it, Swami? Like in context with, see, as a doc, I want people to be healthy and I want people to be disease free. But this word health is a very broad term. People confine it to a certain type of, stereotypes, like you have to look a certain way and only then you're called healthy. So what is your take on that, and what does the scripture say about that, Swami?
Yes, Dr. Ashwin, Western medical science has taken a reductionist perspective of health. They have seen the body as a bag of chemicals which get together to form cells, tissues, muscles, bones, and then organs. And this perspective of theirs leads to a very symptomatic approach that doesn't go to the root of maladies. Now, the World Health Organization itself has given a more broader view of it, saying that health is the complete physical, mental, and social well being of an individual, not merely the absence of disease. The Bhagavad Gita has an even deeper take on this. Our Vedic scriptures, they view the personality in its completion. When we talk of holistic health, we want to see the whole individual. And from the Vedic perspective, we have 5 layers to our personality. One is the gross sheath, then is the vital energy sheath called the pranamaya kosh. Then the mental and emotional sheath called the manamaya kosh. Then the intellectual sheath called the Vijnanmaya Kosh, and then the Anandamaya Kosh. So, from the perspective of the Gita and our Vedic scriptures, health would have a few dimensions to it. The first, of course, is our physical dimension. To be healthy means our digestive system is working well, the organs are robust, the immunity is strong, we have energy to do our work, we can take good rest. Then we have the mental health, which means that we are endowed with positive attitudes, with optimism, with a happy demeanor. And third comes social well being, the ability to establish and sustain meaningful relationships within the family, in society, and in our profession. This requires the ability to empathize with the emotions and sentiments of others, the ability to understand our own emotions and ensure that they don't sabotage us, thereby to master our emotions. And then the fourth aspect would be spiritual well being, that requires us to be endowed with wisdom that helps us resolve ethical and moral dilemmas when they come before us, that enables us to determine our purpose in life, and that endows us with the tools and techniques for removing our shortcomings and pursuing the inner journey of growth and transformation.
Wow.
So, this is holistic health.
Amazing. I really love the way you put it, Swami. And so, can you give us some tools in context with the Bhagavad Gita? You know, Bhagavad Gita always talks about, being precise, when it comes to the food you eat, the limitation in various contexts, the food you eat, the amount of sleep, the amount of physical activity. So,
Yes.
can you just give a gist of the whole thing, which will be easy for people to follow?
Okay. We are what we eat. Ahar shuddhau sattva shuddhi. Therefore, Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita goes into the details of different kinds of foods. So this is the first essential part of our diet. We need to pay attention to it. There are so many varieties of diet that are floating around in the world, and I'm sure your patients, they heap questions on you about the latest diet that is coming along, whether it's the paleo or the keto or the Mediterranean or the Chinese, etc.
All kinds
So
of things.
yeah, here is a simple take on it. The first is to understand what are the nutrients that our body needs. The second is to understand what is the nutrition in the food that we eat. And the third is to understand the impact of these foods apart from merely fulfilling the nutritional requirements. So,
Absolutely.
Bhagavad Gita doesn't go into the details of nutrition as we can all understand. It's a spiritual text, but it does talk in detail about the impacts of foods. So it says that it classifies foods into three categories. So it states that there are some foods which are in the mode of ignorance. When we consume them, we get affected by laziness, by agitation, by anger, the proclivity towards violence and intoxicants. Then the next
Yeah.
category of foods is in the mode of passion. These foods, they excite our desires, worldly ambitions, materialistic aspirations, and thereby send our mind in a spin. So we miss out on the better things in life, the treasure that exists within ourselves. Then there are some foods that are in the mode of goodness. So these foods, they result in the mind gaining poise, harmony, serenity. These foods are juicy, nutritious, succulent, and health bestowing. So the Bhagavad Gita goes into the details of this. Apart from that, when it comes to the other aspects of good health, well, exercise, as we know, is extremely important. Now, look at the amazing wisdom that was bestowed thousands of years ago, a yogic system that can bestow on us the various kinds of exercise regimens that we need. So, as a doctor, I'm sure you understand that we need aerobics for our muscle strength. We need cardio to keep our heart healthy. We need flexes to keep the energy flowing and to keep the organs toned up. Now, the yogic system has all of these. Apart from that, it also has in the mix inverted postures to enhance the flow of blood to the brain, which has tremendous benefits. It is considered the golden posture. And the number of falls that happen in old age. Whenever old people ask me for advice, I tell them that, look, just be careful that you don't fall because
Don't fall.
then, right, then
Absolutely.
you're stuck for 6 months. So the yogic system gives us balancing postures to minimize the falls, and it adds to the mix pranayam, deep breathing, to enhance our vital energy flow and to service all our cells with which is the oxygen of the atmosphere. So some aspects, I'm sure we'll be discussing these, but let me ask you, Dr. Ashwin, you have spent a lifetime studying fitness and good health. You have the benefit of having helped so many of your patients achieve it, and you have kind of created a movement in this direction. So let me ask you, from a doctor's perspective, what are the most important elements for staying healthy?
Wow. Uh, yes, Swami. You just like, it's like a very precise question. Uh, Not just with my patients, what I've seen over the period of, like, 15 plus years. What are the elements of, like, good health is what you say, right? Initially, when I used to be in med school, when I started practice, I always used to think, yeah, if you take care of your body, you're fine. If you exercise, you stay in a certain way. If your physical body is taken care of, you're fine, is what I thought. But as I started seeing patients and I started treating patients, I started understanding the mind plays a very important role in healing as well. As you already said beautifully, the layers of the body. So if you can keep your body and mind in a certain way, and if they work in a perfect, I wouldn't say perfect, at least a certain amount of uh, togetherness, then your body experiences, your being experiences a certain kind of a balance. That's what I would call uh, uh, a good or a important element of health, Swami. And I'm going to ask you a question in context with this again. How
Sure.
important is mind in context with healing?
Oh, what Western medical science is just discovering, the mind body connection. We hear that the mind body school got established as a part of the Harvard Medical School, and now it exists in Stanford as well. This perspective has always been shared in our Vedic scriptures. So in the Yoga Vasisht, there's a conversation where Lord Ram, having toured his kingdom and seen his citizens affected by vyadhi or disease, was moved to compassion. And then on coming back, he asked his guru, Maharshi Vasisht, Gurudev, what is the cause of vyadhi? So Maharshi Vasisht gave such an insightful answer. He said, Ram, disease begins with the mind.
Absolutely.
When we harbor poisonous thoughts, thoughts of stress, fear, anxiety, tension, hatred, envy, now we know these thoughts are hurtful because when the thoughts are inside, the feeling they generate is not nice. So our own feeling tells us, I should not be having these kinds of thoughts. Well, those poisonous thoughts, they disturb the mental sheath. That disturbance gets passed into the vital energy sheath called the pranic kosh. And that disturbance of the vital energy sheath, where you have more energy going to certain tissues and organs and less going to others, etc., finally manifests in the gross body as disease. So, holistic well being is not limited to tending to the physical, but we have to go beyond to the mental. And then it doesn't stop at that either. Because if we wish to rid ourselves of mental poisons, we need to have good values and beliefs in place. If the values are all skewed up, then it's only natural that we'll start chasing things that are hurtful to us. We all know of people who harbor desires. After all, the Surgeon General warns that cigarette smoking is injurious to health. It's on every cigarette pack, and
Absolutely.
yet they are unable to give it up.
Give it up.
You know, my definition of a cigarette. A cigarette is a pipe with smoke at one end and a fool at the other end.
Other end.
So we need to have good values. That means the intellectual sheath must be enlightened with good knowledge. And ultimately, it's all about bliss. That's the bliss sheath. We are all seekers of bliss. And
Absolutely.
where we decide true happiness lies, that is where we align our life's direction with. So we need to get the answers to this vital question: how can I find true happiness in my life? So,
And Swami, and I'm
Doctor,
gonna no, no, I'm gonna ask you another question. This
sure.
is getting interesting. How do we find true happiness, Swami?
Okay, how do we find true happiness? We all feel the illusion is that there are so many alluring things all around us. And if I can only get that object which seems so desirable, it will give me a lot of happiness. But if the desire we created for it had gotten extinguished when we get the object that we aspired for, then the problem would be solved. Unfortunately, what happens is that the moment one desire is extinguished, it leads to a second one which is stronger than the first. Now, neurology has figured this out. What the Bhagavad Gita was telling us all the while. Look, if you create these kinds of inferior desires, it will lead to greed. So, neurology says there's this dopamine chemical within the brain.
Absolutely.
And this chemical is responsible for making us run for happiness. The only problem is that it creates the feeling I will get happiness, but it never really leads to true happiness. And because I'm speaking to a doctor, there's a second brain chemical that creates the sensation of happiness, which is serotonin.
Serotonin.
Serotonin is the fulfilling chemical. It creates the feeling of inner satisfaction, which lasts from day to day, year to year, and which is healthful and beneficial. So that kind of inner happiness which we are seeking, it does not come from the external objects of our desire. It comes from two things. The first is when we improve ourselves. It's a satisfaction like no other.
No.
So there's an auto written in our soul, which is urging us to be better, which is telling us you have still not become how you are supposed to become. And hence the striving goes on. I need to improve. And the second aspiration is I need to do better. We all want to see our work making a difference, creating an impact, at least in the life of one person. And if it's creating an impact in many more, then that satisfaction is multiplied so many times. So the way to be truly happy is when you become good and you do good. That is when you start feeling good.
And I love that.
So,
I really love that, Swami. And I totally agree with you. When it comes to that point, because our body is a chemical industry on its own, right? So, and obviously, if you have to be happy, you need to have those happy chemicals which are produced indigenously, not externally. People do use substances, and especially in this era, I see a lot of people addicted to substances, which gives them that monetary dopamine rush or the monetary serotonin rush. For a few hours, they feel on top of the world and they crash terribly. So yoga, it's an amazing science which naturally makes you, it gets the right chemical soup in your body is what I would say. A happy chemical soup.
yes, yes. So, Dr. Ashwin,
Yes, Swami.
it's so interesting that the definition of the Bhagavad of happiness in our Vedic scriptures, endorsed by the Bhagavad Gita, is that happiness must have three attributes to it. The first is Sat, the second is Chit, and the third is Anand. What is Sat? Sat means the experience must remain. If there's a little kick and it's gone, and even worse, the next day there is a hangover, as the kind of happiness that drinks lead to, then that kind of happiness can never be fulfilling. So the first attribute is Sat. Once you get that happiness, you get it forever. And the second is Chit. Chit means it should be ever fresh. Unlike the happiness from objects, which the first time you see a new movie, you're thrilled, and the second time you're not so thrilled if you have to see the movie again, and third time you think it's a torture. So the happiness is decreasing. The happiness must remain. And the third one is it must be vast in extent. Because if it is puny, it will still not fulfill. Let us say we chase the dream of becoming a millionaire, and by the age of 35, you've achieved it. Say, wow, now I'm so happy. I'm a crorepati. But then you see the Arabpati, and you say, oh my God, he's got this private jet and I don't have it. And the Arabpati is looking at Mukesh Ambani and he's also saying, there's still somebody ahead of me. So the Vedas say that the happiness you want should be infinite in extent. That Satchit Anand happiness comes when you become the best version of yourself. When you do the best that you can. That's the way to achieve true and lasting happiness. So, Dr. Ashwin, let me ask you.
Yes, Swami.
you asked me about the mind. And of course, I have my own experience of this while counseling with devotees, but I'm sure your experience in this matter is far richer. And I'd like to hear from you. You did say that the mind has its impact on the body, but can you elaborate maybe with some real life illustrations or give a deeper
Absolutely.
perspective on this?
Yes, Swami. Uh, uh, I've seen a lot of patients actually heal. Patients who I thought are not going to make it, heal just by their mind. I come from a scientific background where I was taught to believe, you know, you do a certain procedure on a patient, you diagnose a patient with a problem, he or she recovers from that. But it is not that straightforward when I started my practice years ago. See, I'm sure you know this cortisol, as you beautifully said about endorphins and serotonin. This cortisol is the stress hormone which is constantly released in the body. It's a stress response, where your body tries to protect you from, your whatever stress reaction that is. I've seen people, young people, 25, 26-year-old, people with cancers, which in no possible way they can have it. But if you actually look back at their family history, their parents don't have cancers. Nobody in the family, basically, to get cancer, you should have a strong, family history. But when you actually go into the deeper side of it and do the research, and these are people who are stressed for a longer period of time. For example, stressed over a period of 10 years, 12 years, consistent stress, childhood, abuse, childhood trauma, be it whatever it is. Stress for a longer period of time, resulting in some kind of physical damage, be it cancer, organ damage, so on and so forth. So the point is, once they started understanding the concept of mind working on healing and curing them from diseases. For example, yoga. I've seen a lot of people who have gotten into yoga, meditation, and practices various kinds of sadhanas to to, I would say, nullify the mind. We can go into that and talk about it a lot later. But the point is, they started working on their mind, and we started seeing miracles in patients. For example, a 26-year-old guy, he had stage 4 cancer, a type of bone cancer, which had spread to the liver. Normally, that's what we call that metastasis. When a cancer goes to the liver or the lung, it's always considered as end stage disease, Swamiji. But I was
Mhm.
very surprised. This guy went on a certain kind of meditative practice for a period of 9 months, where we thought we're going to lose this guy in 6 months since we started the treatment. But he was out of cancer in a matter of like 3.5, I would say 4 months. And it was a big shock for the medical community. And
Wow.
yeah, and we were like, how could you comprehend this? And then we started going into the depths of, analyzing the various aspects of, as you said, various layers of the body and mind. And then,
Mm.
yes, there is an infinite force way above all of us. And we
Mm.
have, see, that's the best thing what we human beings can do. Try to learn the ways to access, that cosmic force into your system.
Mm.
Because this is one example what I've given you, Swami. There are like, I can tell you at least 11 or 12 solid examples where I saw people heal just by understanding few things and
Mm.
taking control of their body chemistry.
Mm. Very nice, very nice, very, very. This is what I've always been telling people, and now you are endorsing it through your personal experience with patients. Wonderful.
Absolutely. And Swami, I would like to ask you a question at this juncture.
Sure.
We are pretty much 2 years into the pandemic, and I see a lot of people, obviously, personal losses, uh, material losses, financial losses, so on and so forth. This is a time when a lot of people want to be strong, but they are struggling to be strong. So,
Mm.
what would be your advice to them, or how can they regain their inner strength and keep the momentum going during such tough times?
Yes, Dr. Ashwin, inner strength is such a fine virtue. It's an absolutely essential ingredient for success in life, because this journey of life is not a bed of roses. There are going to be difficulties, there are going to be challenges, there are going to be hardships. So it is said, what is the difference between someone who succeeded and someone who failed? The person who failed gave up after 4 attempts, or 4 times when he stumbled. And the person who succeeded also stumbled 10 times, but continued and succeeded on the 11th occasion. So the defining virtue here was inner strength, the ability to face challenges. Saint Kabir has talked about it, and he says, Sona sajjana sadhujan टूटे जुड़े 100 बार दुर्जन कुंभ कुमार के एके करा दरार. He says the nature of gold, of good people, and of saints is you break them, or life breaks them 100 times, they will join back again. And the nature of the evil minded and the potter's pot, once shattered, they are destroyed forever. So, having understood that inner strength is of such vital importance, what is it that can enable us to create it? I would say one of the things that can lead to inner strength is reframing a situation. When we encounter failure or hardships, we can either look on it as the end of the world, but those who carry on are the ones who reframe the situation with positivity. So let me give you an example. One person wrote his journal. I've retired today. It's such a terrible year for me. My 95-year-old father passed away. I had to give up a job which I was doing for 35 years. And my son had an accident because of which he was in the hospital for 3 weeks. He wrote that on his paper and left. The wife saw that paper and she reframed the same things. So she wrote it from her husband's side. After working for so many years, I'm finally free as a retired man. I can do whatever I wish. And uh, I have now my son. Thank God his life was saved, because he had such a terrible accident. He could have died, but all the same, he was saved. And just in 3 weeks in the hospital, he is now ready to lead his normal life again. The situation was the same, but it's a matter of perspective of how they were looking at it. Those who carry loads full of inner strength are ones who can always reframe what happens in positive light. They prefer to choose to see the silver lining in the cloud and to use this as a learning opportunity. With that perspective, we never fail. Either we succeed or we learn. And the second is the attitude of gratitude. So, all of us, as our cup in life has the half empty part to it and the half full part to it. Now, what is it that we choose to see? We can either look at the half empty part and say, I don't have this and I don't have that. Or we can choose to look at the half full part So there was this lady whose daughter was writing out uh, something. The mother asked, "What is this homework that you are doing?" The daughter said that my teacher has asked me to write negatives, which are actually good for me. So she had written out there that I am thankful for my exams because at the end of it, I have a wonderful vacation. And I am thankful for the bad medicine because it makes me well, and so on. And that's when the lady realized that she can also have the same attitude. I am thankful for the taxes I have to pay because they let me know I am earning. I am thankful for the dirty house I need to clean up because if I know that I have a loving family here. So when we start counting the blessings in our life, then we are automatically moved to positivity. And the third thing, Dr. Ashwin, now you talked about the higher power. Yes, that is where the faith comes in. When we know that there is a higher power at work that has created the miracles from the tiniest Higgs bosons to the biggest galaxies, that gives us hope. And I may not be able to understand why the corona has come and why all this has happened, but I have faith that it is all for a higher good. And let me, in that faith, continue with hope that all will be brought to the best. To conclude this answer with another little clip story. One little child, his grandmother was stitching something, and he came and looked from below and said, "Nani, what are you doing?" She said, "I'm stitching a sweater for you." "But Nani, it looks so awful." They were all cotton threads sticking out and completely apparently at random. Nani said, "Beta, come and sit in my lap." And when he came into the lab, he could see from the other side a beautiful pattern was being created.
Ah,
Similarly, sometimes from our myopic viewpoint as tiny little souls, it may seem that the whole world has gone crazy and everything is wrong. And if you listen to the media, they will keep on telling you that the sky is about to fall in your head, but it doesn't seem to fall either. The world just keeps going on and on. So, if we have faith that a higher power is bringing all things to fruition, we do not need to worry. Just focus on doing your work to the best of your ability and leave to God all the rest.
yeah, that's sounds very convincing. Yes, Swami.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
yes,
Yes.
Swami.
So, okay. So, Dr. Ashwin, now it's my turn to ask you. You talked about the pandemic, and we all have been taking precautions. And I myself got my vaccine,
COVID
double
shot.
vaccinated. And let me tell you a little secret.
Yes,
When
Swami.
I was in the US, they started the booster dose.
Right.
So I said, "Come on, give me the booster dose." So they said, "Where did you take the first two doses?" I said, "I took them in India." So they said, "We don't have any protocol for giving booster dose to somebody who got it in India." So then I went to the next one. I went to CVS pharmacy and said, "I want my first dose." So they gave me the first dose of that vaccine. So, but nevertheless, Dr. Ashwin, see what happens is now with the new variant coming in, all those doses are not much use because it's not working. So
Absolutely.
ultimately, we all need to boost our immunity. And you, as a doctor, you please tell us that what are the most effective ways we can all enhance our immune system.
Great question, Swami. I would like to just tell you a few things. Uh, Again, getting back to the basics. First and foremost, it comes down to the foods what we eat. Uh, Reduce, I would say, cut refined sugar out of your diet. It might not be possible for a lot of people. At least reduce the amount of refined sugar you take. Number one. And number two, reduce the amount of processed food you eat. Make sure you eat a lot of live foods. For example, be it fruits or vegetables. If it's live, your body absorbs it better and it definitely works better. And number three, please keep your body active. Be it, I always suggest yoga for my patients. And if you actually see the reports coming out of the last 2 years, people who have been mobile and active by doing any kind of physical practices, be it yoga or exercise, they have definitely come out stronger out of the pandemic, and they are the least hit. This is great news for everybody, and it should motivate people to be active. And obviously, please don't compromise on sleep. At least get your daily, I would say, 6 to 7 hours. uh, it really helps. So if you get these fundamentals right, I'm sure your immune system is going to be strong. And yes, Swami. And another recent interesting point I would like to add is yoga has done wonders in context with the pandemic as well. People who've been regularly practicing pranayama and even the basic yogic practices have definitely suffered less from COVID. There are numerous papers coming out of that, and yes, so hope it helps.
Mm. Yes, yes, yes. Definitely, it helps. Those are very, very powerful points. I'm sure we can definitely, they are doable, and we'll look forward to utilizing all of them to become more immune to viruses, etc.
Swamiji, and another question from my side.
Sure.
Pain. We all have some form of pain. I'm talking about emotional or mental pain. So, how important is pain for a person to grow as a human being? How important is it? It is for us to learn, or to have the right tools to handle pain. And how important is it,
Mm.
Swamiji?
Yes, yes, Dr. Ashwin, that is a question that's very dear to my heart. Because if we don't have this mindset of tolerating pain, and if we live by the philosophy of doing what gives us the pleasure in the moment, the consequences will be surfing the internet when we should be exercising. We'll be watching Netflix when we should be working. And we'll be eating junk foods when we could eat healthful salads. So the fact is that all progress happens outside of the comfort zone. Anything that is worthwhile always lies upstream. And to access it, we do need to tolerate a certain amount of discomfort. I have a psychologist friend who said to me, Swamiji, I have treated so many obese patients whose only problem is that they are unable to tolerate the slightest pang of hunger. And the
Absolutely.
moment they experience it, they need to extinguish it by eating something. So it does extinguish the momentary pain, but it doesn't come without a cost because they are subjecting themselves to a lifetime of weak health and disease. So In so many ways, discomfort is so beneficial for us. If first is the physical discomfort, if we wish to exercise, it is painful. When you have to sweat it out, you need to exert, you need to tire yourself. But the benefits it bestows are so good. In the time when I was a little younger, there was a track and field athlete, Edwin Moses. So, Edwin Moses was a black American. He held the record, the world record for the maximum number of consecutive victories. He had run 122 400-meter hurdles races, which was his event. And when he was asked by journalists what is the secret of his success, his answer was so thrilling for me. He said, I have a greater ability to tolerate pain than the
Wow.
others. Now, think about it for a sportsperson. It's always a struggle against pain. And how much of pain are you going to tolerate before you give up? And those who have a higher tolerance for it, they just carry on exerting. The muscle tissues break, but they're going to come back. So, likewise, it is with the discomfort of our taste buds as well. Now, unfortunate as it is, that junk food is very pleasurable but not good for health. And healthy foods are often uncomfortable to the tongue. As a little child, I remember thinking so often. I used to ask my mother, that, why is it that everything that is tasty is bad for health? But everything that you say is good for health is not tasty. So, if we want to be healthy, we have to tolerate the discomfort of that tongue as well. So, this tolerance of pain, Dr. Ashwin, is the basic principle. Even the animals know it. When the mama giraffe in the African savannah gives birth to her little one, she doesn't sit down. She releases her baby from 8, 9 feet high. And that little child lands with a thud. It is painful for that tender body. But the mama takes no pity and with her hard hoofs kicks the child and
Ex-
makes it stand up. But then the child is tottering around and the mama kicks it again, making it roll and stand up. So we may say that mama is so cruel, but the mama knows that we have just a few minutes before the lions are here. Likewise, you must have come across so many patients who say, Doctor, don't do this to me. But you know, this pain, no gain.
no gain.
So,
How does
Dr.
that?
Ash,
Yes, Swami.
yes,
Sorry to interrupt. How does that
yes.
translate in the spiritual realm? No pain, no
How,
gain.
how does it translate in the spiritual realm? In the spiritual realm, we call this voluntary austerity or tapasya.
Tapasya.
Everything has a price to it. There are no free lunches. So decide what you want. Understand what is the price to pay for it, and then be willing to pay the price. Now, from the spiritual point of view, our saints and scriptures, now Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam raja. He is telling Arjun to make the supreme sacrifice. And he's saying, okay, Arjun, you make the supreme sacrifice because without sacrifice, you will never achieve anything higher. And I promise you that you will find the supreme destination. In fact, to take it one step further, I don't know if this is appropriate for your social media, but the Saint Kabir again, he says that he says that those who wish to attain the Lord will need to cut off their head and offer it as sacrifice. शीश है लहू की तुमड़ी हरि अमृत की खान शीश दिए जो हरि मिले तो भी सस्ता जान. So sacrifice, the acceptance of voluntary austerity. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is presented as yajna, it is presented as tapasya. Okay, Dr. Ashwin, my turn to ask you now.
Yes, Swamiji.
A lot of young people, they take to sports to remain fit. But then what about the elder generation? Those who are, let's say, above 50s and for whom the sports options have kind of reduced. My question is that to keep old age at bay and to remain healthy, even as seniors, what is it that you would recommend from your expertise and experience?
Right. I think it's a very important question, Swamiji, because young people, as you said, they are into some form of physical activity or sporting activity. People who want to start after the age of 50, they tend to get intimidated. They don't know where to start and what to do. One easy thing, I would recommend is to start with a 20-minute walk. It can be, to begin with, it can be slow walking for 20 minutes a day, progressing on to brisk walking over a period of 3 to 4 weeks. So the simple practice I would advise for anybody above the age of 50, start with 20 minutes of walking. That's fair enough. After a period of like 1 month, say, they can increase the duration to 30 minutes and increase it by 5 minutes every week. And if they can walk for 45 minutes, over a period of 3 to 4 months, that's a very good enough practice to keep their bones, joints, and muscles healthy.
Wow, that you are talking about what was so dear to Mahatma Gandhi and to Dr. Abdul Kalam.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes,
Any
yes,
other
Swami.
points?
That's one in context with physical activity. And when it comes to food, if they can reduce the intake of food to twice a day, when that happens, your basic stem cell activity goes up by at least 150%. Why? Basically, there is a system called reticuloendothelial system in your body, which is very important for your immune system, Swamiji. Fasting stimulates your reticuloendothelial system directly. And, if they can tolerate one meal a day, OMAD is what we call. There is a very fancy concept called OMAD. Narrowing it down, one meal a day is fantastic if they can do it, or at least twice, 2 meals a day. And please, eat before the sun sets is what I would say. 2 meals a day, one meal after sunrise, and one meal before sunset. Yeah, if they could do these two things, it really helps them be healthy, Swamiji.
Well, definitely it's worth it. You have given very, very simple and doable solutions. Walk, start with 20 minutes and move it up to 45 minutes, 5 minutes extensions, and eat 2 meals a day. Don't eat after 6 o'clock. Great.
Yeah, and if they are consuming alcohol, please reduce. I would say totally take alcohol off your system. At least reduce it to once a week. And if you smoke, please give up smoking, because smoking has actually killed more people than any other substance. So far in the history of modern medicine.
Okay. Okay, we can make it the last round of questions, maybe.
Yes, Swamiji. I'm going to ask you the last. Swamiji, is there any regimen which you would recommend to nourish the body as well as the mind? It could, I a daily regimen, Swamiji.
Yeah, sure. Dr. Ashwin, uh, this idea of a daily regimen is the concept of sharpening the saw. When we use a saw to cut a tree, it starts getting blunted. Now, after cutting a tree, which let's say could take an hour, if we don't spend 5 minutes sharpening the saw, then it becomes less efficient. And slowly, our productivity gets affected. So it may seem like we are wasting time and we could have more productively used it by just continuing to cut. But that is an inefficient way of doing things. Likewise, the body and the mind need to be tended to. So for the mind, the Bhagavad Gita says, Vivikta Sevi Laghvashi. Spend some time in isolation where you block out everything. And in today's world, it's even more relevant with all kinds of information pouring upon us. So, in that isolation, we expose ourselves to hearing spiritual wisdom, to contemplating over it, to meditating, etc. I have created a 1 hour schedule. Actually, the Vedas talk about spending 2 hours every day for your spiritual nourishment. But to be more practical in modern times, say, okay, make a commitment to spend 1 hour for your own soul. In that, say a little prayer for 5 minutes. Read or hear good knowledge for 20 minutes. Contemplate, that is, actively ruminate over what you have read and heard. Contemplation, chintan is very powerful for another 20 minutes. Spend 10 minutes in meditation, and the kind of meditation I recommend is a technique called Rupa Dhyan meditation. And then end it all with an arti of the Lord. So that's the 1 hour regimen, which I call Kripalu Paddhati after my spiritual teacher. And also spend 1 hour for the body. So every sedentary worker knows that if we don't devote a little bit of time to exercise, it's not going to be a sustainable model. To make this life and whatever we are doing sustainable, we need to sharpen the saw. So, of course, medical science tells us that we need 150 minutes of good exercise every week. And what I suggest to people is that you need a mix of aerobics, of flexes, of cardio, etc. So I have created a regimen called Kripalu Prakriya, which you do for 5 to 6 days a week. It includes 20 minutes of the yogic postures, and those postures include the flexes and the strengthening postures, both are covered in it. And 10 minutes for pranayam, for your cellular health and the
Absolutely.
vital energy sheet. And then I tell people that for the next half an hour, you go for a walk, or if you're young, you can run.
One.
But I usually don't recommend people above 40 should do running. You know,
Absolutely.
the Indian body doesn't take it. And I have come across so many who complain of knee problems. And I tell them, look, just give up running, it'll be okay. They say, yes, Swamiji, you told me the truth. So that's the 1 hour routine for the body. Okay, so now I would like to ask you, Dr. Ashwin, that you have been interacting with sports personalities and you are so active in this wellness segment. So you tell me that as a daily exercise pattern, what are the ingredients which a normal person should tend to?
That's a good question, Swamiji. I would like to break my answer into two parts. People below the age of 40 and above the age of 40. Below the age of 40, the body functions in a certain way. The collagen content in the body is high. The joints, the muscle tissues function in a certain way. Above 40, yes, it does work. I'm not saying no, but the way it functions changes substantially. So anybody, right, under the age of 40, I will tell, I've seen numerous people, that's one side, and I've experimented tons of things on my body itself. So what I will just tell you what has worked for me and what has worked for a lot of people. I would want to give you research-based solution for this. People less than 40, if you want to stay active, if you want to try, you can experiment any kind of physical activity you want, be it gymming, aerobic exercises, cardiovascular exercises, endurance exercises, HIIT, yoga, anything you want. Above the age of 40, be a little cautious because roughly 25 to 30% people have low back issues and knee issues at the age of 40 because of the modern lifestyle. For them, I would ask them to start with walking. As you rightly said, no running right away. Eventually, they can progress to running. First, let them assess their body. Let them spend some time understanding their body by starting to walk with a simple walking practice of 20 minutes to 30 minutes a day. And then eventually, gradually, you progress on to, if you're interested in weight training and stuff, you could start it with 3 times a week. And then you take rest days on alternate days. And you can combine it with 20 to 30 minutes of cardiovascular activity every other day. And Swami, I will give you the magic recipe for your mind and body to function at its peak. Okay, and this has worked well for me, and it is still working well for me. See, I do weight training thrice a week, for example, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and I stick to my yogic practices 6 days a week. As long as, as a youngster, I was a lot into sporting activities. I was an athlete. I was a track athlete. I was into a lot of gymming and stuff. I felt very powerful when I did those things. But once I introduced yoga into my life, hatha yoga especially, the way my body functioned, the way my lungs performed, the way my brain started seeing things, even as an athlete, it just skyrocketed. The body's efficiency skyrocketed on a different scale. So balance it out, bring in some form of yogic practices into your life, at least thrice a week. It will do wonders. And obviously you can swap it with, alternate days of whatever sporting activity you like, be it biking, bicycling, gymming, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And I hope.
Very nice. Absolutely. Very nice. Thank you for sharing your own experience. Actually, myself as well. I was all the while now as a sadhu, you can't do any strenuous exercise in the gyms, etc. But I was keeping up a basic schedule of yoga. And then when I hit 50, slowly things started, sometimes the back complaints and then the knee complaints and etc. So what I have done now is for one day, I do for the upper body and to keep it intact. And then the next day, I do for the lower body, focusing on the legs. And the third day, I just do Surya Namaskars, get the sufficient cardio.
Absolutely.
Then I repeat that cycle again. And the seventh day, I let the body heal itself. It's working very well.
Absolutely. And most importantly, after the age of 40, Swamiji, I think we have to start listening to our body because the body is way more intelligent than our mind. The thing is, we try to fight our body. We try to push it. Everybody is told that you got to push your body to get to few things, but I wouldn't recommend because I see a lot of people getting injured because of that. So listen to your body. And as you rightly said, one day of rest is must. Yes, you can. I hope this helps.
Good.
Yes, Swamiji. And it was an amazing interaction and so glad to be a part of this conversation. And I think this is what everyone needs, Swamiji. Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to be happy, everybody wants to be healthy, but they don't know where to start and they don't know what to do. I think this conversation gives, at least, if there is one takeaway for, anybody who watches this, and it will definitely change their life for good, is what I feel, Swamiji.
Yes, very well said, Dr. Ashwin. Sharira madhyam khalu dharma sadhanam. Lord Krishna says in the Gita, look, if you don't take care of your body, you cannot even achieve success in the spiritual journey. So we do need to prioritize it. And from this conversation would have gotten people thinking. And it's a very reasonable assessment that even if we have one takeaway from it all, it's going to benefit people. It was a pleasure speaking to you.
Absolute pleasure, Swamiji.
Namaste.
Thank you so much.
Namaste.